Hey, good morning and welcome to the Saturday edition of today's news. This is Saturday edition, episode number 2. We're really piling on these episodes. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm John F. Gately, your host, and I'm broadcasting to you from beautiful Plymouth, Massachusetts. It is a crisp but sunny day here in America's hometown, which is nice. I wishing you a wonderful Easter weekend. And today, of course, is Saturday morning. What time is it here? It is just 10 o'clock, just after 10 o'clock on the Eastern Seaboard. Let's get into today's stories. The first one I want to bring up for you is something that we covered yesterday, but is maybe not getting as much attention as it needs to be. Biden proposal will bar schools from enacting outright bans on trans athletes. So, with everything that's going around relative to the trans issue, the thing that's happening in the background would be a Biden administration rule, an amendment to Title IX, which would basically wipe out all of the states that have passed bans for trans athletes in girls sports. It would eliminate those laws, effectively make them null and void. So schools across the country would be forbidden from enacting outright bans on transgender athletes under a proposal released Thursday. The proposed rule sends political counterparts to a wave of Republican-led states. They have to say Republican-led states because, they don't want to notice that it's actually just the majority of people are against this, that have sought to ban trans athletes from competing in school sports that align with their gender identities. If finalized, the proposal would be enshrined in Title IX. Now, Title IX is the irony of this is that Title IX is the law, so to speak, that basically created women's sports as an equal thing at every level of collegiate, elementary school. The whole thing basically is the landmark. It said gender equity legislation. It should say female equity legislation enacted in 1972. It's the most. Must undergo a lengthy approval process. Thank God. And will most face challenges. Yes, and it will wipe out I think we're up to 21 states. This article says 19, but I thought we were up to 21 states. It will wipe out those laws. It basically federalize the issue. That is what is at stake here. That is the strategy. No matter what issue it is, if you're in power, you always want to federalize the issue. If you're not in power, you always want to make it a states' rights issue, right? That's on every level, basically, and every strategy, right? That is definitely the situation. Last night, after being assaulted and basically held hostage in the University of San Francisco. Sorry, I've got my little headphone thing here. Hold on a second. There's always something, right? There you go. Fortunately, no one's watching, so it didn't matter. But all right, we got it now, I think. So last night, Riley Gaines, after being That's better. So last night, Riley Gaines, after being assaulted at the University of San Francisco, or San Francisco University, whatever it happens to be, was on Tucker. She was stuck in the hallways after giving a speech at the college for 3 hours. 3 hours stuck in a hallway because security just could not get her out of there, or did not want to do what was required to get her out of there. That's probably a more descriptive or more better way to describe it. They didn't want to do their job, and so she was stuck there for 3 hours while this trans nut job like riot happened. It was just insane. Here she is last night on Tucker explaining what happened.
Riley Gaines, thank you so much for coming on. Was that as horrifying as it looked?
I mean, it was terrifying. The police did not inform me of any sort of action plan. Turning Point USA invited me to the campus. I delivered a very civil and respectful speech where I had great dialogue with even protesters who were participating in a sit-in. All of a sudden, after my speech, the room was stormed. The lights were turned off, and I was rushed with no one there to escort me to a safe place. I was punched. I was hit multiple times. I was shoved until finally we exited the room. But we could not leave because the protesters flooded the halls. And so I was pushed into a classroom along that hallway where I was barricaded in for 3 hours.
Stuck in a classroom for 3 hours because the cops wouldn't do their job, or there weren't enough of them, or whatever the situation was.
Why didn't someone with a gun come and bring you to safety?
Because they were terrified. They were scared to put their hands on these people because they know what these people are capable of.
Well, that's a great point. The cops know, even though that their duty is to protect somebody, the cops know that they will not be backed up by the administration, right? If you protest and take over the well of the Tennessee House of Representatives, that is just speaking up. That's just speaking truth to power. That's not an insurrection, right? The cops know that everyone sees this, that if you actually do your job as a cop, you're going to be penalized.
People yelled obscene, violent, vulgar things to both myself and the officers, I could tell, didn't feel comfortable putting them in a position that would mean they do their job, which is a really scary, chilling thought.
This is the most dangerous extremist movement in the United States right now. It's getting bigger, not smaller. It's gaining.
That's right, Tucker. Excellent.
Not losing it. The White House has endorsed it. I mean, what does this mean for you? And I just can't say it again since I happen to know you. You are an inherently moderate person who means harm to no one. But are you worried about your safety going forward?
You know, I am worried about my safety. I have to be now. When we have people who are willing to do this, and we know why they're willing to do this, it's because they don't have reason, they don't have logic, they don't have science, they don't have common sense on their side. That's on my side. And so they protrude by violence, whether it's physical or verbal violence. But what this means for me,
and that's true. I mean, we've seen this everywhere, right? We've seen this in New York City earlier this week while I was there. We've seen it in Tennessee. Whenever they can't win on the merits, they try to shout you out or down, and they try to physically intimidate you, which is exactly what was the attempt for Riley Gaines. She's not buying it.
Does not deter me. This assures me that I am doing the right thing. This will not silence me when they want me to be silenced. It just means I need to speak louder.
Really quick, did anyone in the state of California in authority, any political figure, for example, defend you?
No, not the dean of students, not the campus police. I will say the city of San Francisco police that stepped in, they did a phenomenal job in escorting 3 hours later. But I will be pursuing legal action. I will ensure that the people who physically assaulted me, the people who put me in that position, they will face repercussions.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't identify that as evil, then we've really lost the thread. Riley Gaines, I'm glad you're still here, and
Absolutely.
Godspeed.
Way to go, Riley Gaines, and way to stick up for yourself and not be intimidated. Not to be intimidated. She is a poster child right now for showing how not to be intimidated. The former Kentucky swimmer, good for her. Also, on the transgender front, transgender cyclists booted from women's championship after female competitors threaten boycott. Sports governing body rules cyclist is not currently compliant with its regulations. This is a couple of days old from the Daily Wire. Amanda, boy, I can't pronounce your name, so I won't, but good job. Biological male cyclist who now identifies as a female was barred from competing in a women's championship race this weekend following threats of boycott from good women. If women are going to save women's sports, women have to do it. Women have to save women's sports. That's why Riley Gaines was in San Francisco, to save women's sports. That was the basically topic of her speech. Emily Bridges, who formerly competed against men as Zach Bridges, was cut from the women's British national championship on Saturday. By the way, Europe is, I know, Europe, of all places, actually coming to their senses on this transgender thing faster than we are in the United States. Especially, I guess, in the United Kingdom. This would have been Bridges' first race against women. Good, nip it in the bud. The athlete only began hormone therapy last year. Bridges was determined ineligible to compete under cycling's governing body after women threatened to boycott the race. I hope this is not just a matter of time where eventually this person would be allowed to compete. If you're a biological male and you grew up that way, you should not be in women's sports. Bridges, who set National Juniors men's record for over 25 miles in 2018, so that someone's been cycling for a long time, has been due to compete against several British Olympians, including Dame Laura Kenny, whoever that is. Probably some really good cyclist, in her first race in the women's category. All right, so there's the pronoun that they throw down there in her first race in the women's. No, it's his first race. It's so, I was just listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he got the whole Tennessee Covenant School shooter pronoun situation wrong. And then they had to look it up for him, and he's like, oh, this is just going to be so confusing. And it can be so confusing from time to time. And they want it that way, right? However, the UCI ruled that the 21-year-old who began hormone therapy last year to reduce her testosterone level, oh my God, was currently not compliant with his regulations, as he still has registered as a male cyclist and therefore cannot compete in a woman until her male ID expires. Oh, so the reason why he's not competing is just it's a technical situation with some type of identity with the current eligibility as a male cyclist. He's currently identified as a male cyclist according to their rules, and therefore can't go into the women's category until his ID expires. Then they'll probably let him in. Okay, sure. Unless all the women decide not to ride, right? If he's the only one in the women's category and none of the other women decide to run that race, which is what they should do, then this farce will be over, right? This farce will be over. Let's talk about everyone's least favorite, Dylan Mulvaney. All right, so breaks cover to take trash at his LA home after living the good life at $1,500 a night at New York Plaza Hotel. By the way, the Plaza Hotel is really nice. I'm sure you know. I did walk by it the other day when I was in New York. Amid firestorm caused by Bud Light and Nike deals. So I just want to scroll down to these photos that some paparazzi got where he is taking out the trash right there. All right, he's taking out the trash at his LA home. And we got some close-ups here. There's one there. Well, wait for it. Here's the better one. There it is. He's got 5 o'clock shadow. He's got 5 o'clock. He's got more 5 o'clock shadow than I do. And I did not shave this Saturday morning. I just kind of Saturday, I skipped the shave. Dylan, look at that mustache. He's got 5 o'clock shadow right there. You can see it. He's a guy. He's a guy. He is not a her. He is a guy. Thank you, Daily Mail, for posting this. And I thought it was one other. No, he picking up some random piece of trash right there. He is a guy. A guy. It's a he. Let's stop this absolute insanity of calling people she when they're he. Right? Let's stop that. And the opposite of that, for that matter, as well. Apparently over at Jack Daniels facing boycott calls after 2021 drag queen campaign. So apparently to a little bit of notice in the middle of the pandemic, Jack Daniels ran a drag queen campaign. Something spoofing RuPaul's Drag Race. Small Town Big Pride campaign enlisted drag queens from the TV show to produce a series of videos called Drag Queen Summer Camp Glamp. Do I have that right? Drag Queen Summer Glamp. Whatever. Which was released during Pride Month of 2021, apparently. Spokesperson for Jack Daniels said that the distillery makes products with everyone in mind. And Jack Daniels celebrates individuality and living life boldly on your own terms. You know, when I think of the brand Jack Daniels and living your life boldly on your own terms, I think of Keith Richards, right? I think of Keith Richards. He is the one that defines the brand Jack Daniels, for me at least. Living life boldly on your own terms. That's Keith Richards, right? Right there he is right there. I love Keith Richards. Love the Rolling Stones, especially Keith. And I totally recommend his book, by the way. When you think of Jack Daniels, I think of Keith Richards. That's somebody that's living his life boldly as a man, right? As a man, right? All right, let's get to the next story, which is AOC, which is AOC. No. Let's go to the war plan story first. A very disturbing story from a number of sources. We're going to go to the Japan Times first. New batch of U.S. classified documents appear on social media sites. So you might remember that yesterday we spoke in the live stream about a leak of documents from the Pentagon that, how do I want to say this, was about a month old. And it was Ukraine war plans that were leaked. And they were doctored in a way to show, at least that's what the story, they were doctored in a way to show that things were going better for the Ukrainians than actually it looked as if they were going, or the other way. They were doctored. Let's just put it that way. And the Pentagon said, oh, it's a breach, but it's not that bad, and everything will be fine. So apparently they have more of these. And this is a very serious national security issue. A new batch of classified documents that appear to detail U.S. national security secrets from Ukraine to the Middle East to China surfaced on social media sites Friday, alarming the Pentagon and adding turmoil to a situation that seemed to have caught the Biden administration off guard. The scale of the leak, analysts say more than 100 documents may have been obtained, along with sensitive documents themselves. They could be hugely damaging, U.S. officials said. So even our own government is saying this is a big deal. A senior intelligence official called the leak a nightmare for the Five Eyes. That's the U.S., Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. That supposedly we share intelligence with. The latest documents were found on Twitter and other sites on Friday, a day after senior Biden administration officials say they were investigating a potential leak of classified Ukrainian war plans, including an alarming assessment of Ukraine's faltering air defense capabilities. So basically, this stuff is helping Russia. Whoever's leaking this is helping Russia in the Ukraine war. Just in full record, remind you that I am not in favor of the Ukraine war. It's an awful thing that Russia's doing in Ukraine, but I don't think we should really be over there trying to stop it. We have many, many, many other problems, including an invasion on our own border. Let's not forget that. Mick Mulroy, a former Pentagon official, said leak of classified documents represents a significant breach in security that could hinder Ukrainian military planning. As those were pictures of documents, it appears that it was a deliberate leak done by somebody that wished to damage the Ukraine, U.S., and NATO efforts, he said. One other analyst said it was the tip of the iceberg. Well, obviously, this is a rush. The Russians did it, right? Obviously, the Russians did it. What other explanation can you have for this, right? Obviously, the Russians do it. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's someone inside the U.S. government who doesn't like what we're doing. Either way, even though I don't like the whole Ukraine war, I don't think you should be spilling U.S. classified documents on the internet if you're if you're a citizen. Otherwise, I guess you have to look at the Russians and somehow they hacked into Pentagon computers. I don't know. Well, who knows really at this point? It's hard to believe that we'll actually ever know the truth, but it's not good because if someone can get these documents, then they can also get other documents relative to our defense plans, relative to China or Taiwan or any number of other plans. Very, very, very dangerous. A huge black eye for our intelligence services once again. You can also read this story in the in the Wall Street Journal. Pentagon is investigating social media posts that purport to reveal highly classified documents on the war in Ukraine and other key international topics and what could be one of the most dangerous intelligence breaches in decades. I know this is not flashy, and I know it won't get as much attention as what AOC said last night, which we're going to cover now. But that is a tremendously damaging matter for our national security. And I really hope that somewhere, somehow, we get to the bottom of it. All right, let's talk about AOC. AOC, Dem Senator, call on Biden administration to ignore federal ruling on abortion pill. You've got to hear this story here. Let's pull it up. Hitting play now. Here we go.
Hey guys, we are giving out a ton. Hey guys, we are giving out a.
We'll let the commercial play and then we'll pull it up. But basically, AOC is saying that Biden administration should ignore a Texas judge who on Friday issued an injunction against the Food and Drug Administration's approval of an abortion pill that has been otherwise approved since 2020. Since the year 2000.
We want to talk about this yesterday. A federal judge could pull a commonly used abortion pill off the market nationwide. He's a Trump-appointed judge. He heard 4 hours of arguments yesterday in a Texas lawsuit over the FDA's approval of Milafrex. I don't know if I'm saying that correct because it comes in a couple of different terms. Plaintiffs claim the agency misused its.
Don't worry, Dana. I can't pronounce it either.
Back in 2000, but
and I am like a huge Dana Perino fan. Let's see if we can pull this video up a little bit better. This one's not working for us. One moment.
This afternoon, a couple hours
Here's
ago. What did you think?
AOC explaining
Well,
her
I think
opinion on the
rulings like this, and I think we've seen from the FDA and also from activity in Congress that some of these rulings, I think we've been preparing and anticipating for there being these egregious overreaches by members of the judiciary appointed by a right wing.
When she doesn't agree with it, it's an egregious overreach.
Republican Party, whose goal for a very long time was to just pack these courts with partisan judges, often underqualified or completely unqualified for their role. And so there has been thought, I believe.
Now, unqualified. We just had a judge go to the Supreme Court who could not define what a woman was. But these judges are unqualified. Oh, okay.
to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that the courts have the legitimacy and
we should just ignore the ruling. The Biden administration should just ignore the ruling. Federal court? No, we're not going to pay attention to that.
rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that are undermining their own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but
So understand what you just said. The courts are undermining the enforcement of their own rulings. That's kind of circular. Let's see what Mr. Vanderbilt follows up with the question here.
what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
I think the interesting thing when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it is up to the Biden administration to enforce,
Who's the fascist now?
choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
But is that
You don't get to choose to enforce a ruling. That's what it means when it's a ruling.
you want to live in a world where a government can decide to ignore a federal
Well,
court
no,
ruling?
of course. I mean, I do
Wow.
think that it raises these important questions. And I do think that when we look at, and there are serious questions that
So Anderson Cooper just asked the question that he should have asked as a journalist. So I'm shocked, actually. Do you really want to live in a country like that where the government gets to decide, or the administration gets to decide whether they're going to enforce rulings? And AOC says we should have that discussion about that. Maybe we should live. Maybe she's basically saying maybe we should live in a country where we get to decide whether to adhere to a court ruling or not.
DA and the Biden administration is going to have to figure out and how exactly we map this out. But on the other hand, what we are also seeing is a power grab over our courts, in which the laws passed by Congress and the rules and policies passed by the executive branch now are going to require unanimous consent from 650 district court judges, many of which are appointed with even, the American Bar Association saying that they're completely unfit for the role.
All right. So really, who cares what the American Bar Association says anymore? They're totally captured by the far left. What is very dangerous about what she said is that she wants to live in a country where the executive branch gets to decide whether or not they abide by court rulings. Understand how fascist that is. That is fascism, where the executive branch decides whether they adhere to court rulings. That is the definition of fascism, really. I wonder how far they're going to take this. Well, I already know. They're going to take it as far as they possibly can. We're in a fight, a battle for the country. That is what we're battling right now, to save the United States as we know it. Because these folks, AOC and so many others, are looking to actually destroy the country and create into some type of socialist, communist, everyone's equal, but no one's actually equal, animal farm situation, right? With Big Brother watching to make sure that you behave yourself. That's exactly what they're trying to do, both on the social front, on the government front, on every front, trying to transform America into something that it was never intended to be. We've been an experiment here for almost 200 and almost 250 years or whatever it is, something like almost 250 years, 240-ish. How many years has it been? 200 in 1976. Do the math. Nearing 250 years, and they want to destroy it. That's their mission. All right. So from America's hometown, Plymouth, Massachusetts, I'm John F. Gately. Thanks for watching.